world of Alan, a great war between the continents of Eberros and Algesh is forcibly brought to an end by the Tempest, a cataclysmic storm that rages over the surrounding oceans, a divide which serves both as salvation and doom. The adventurers known as Hydra seek the means to control the Tempest, but can they unite against adversity on all sides? Can they repay a debt to a friend?
Hot on the trail of Blitz Handingler, the party decides that they're going to see if he really is at the Great City Outpost, hoping that we can prevent him from being tortured for information. We make our way to the Great City Outpost with greater activity from the Red Crests due to the attack on the palace. It's very much like the days of the Sewer King, sans the queues of merchants petitioning for protection. We're able to go in, past some of the people who are offering information. We see a clerk at the front desk and ask to see Captain Jansen, and we explain what has happened, and we want to confirm that he is the real Blitz, not the illusion that we had spoken to in his workshop. Having done this, we decide that we're going to go to the palace and ask the Queen some questions, if she is well enough to talk. The Dwarven infantry at the palace is much greater here, now responding to make sure that there's not going to be a second attack on Her Majesty. As we make our way, Magnus Cole passes us and salutes us, and tells us that we may be able to attend the Privy Council, where we send a message to Wyatt, and then proceed to meet him in person, as he wants to discuss the information there. So we make our way to the Privy Council chambers, which also accounts as a courtroom should the need arise. There's marble pillars and banners in resplendent red, as well as gilded creatures. Oh yes, I can see on the picture there. Yeah, gilded creatures. And a portrait of the Queen with her favourite owlbear, Mr. Bubbles. Beneath it is a throne, with judges presiding there, but it can also be used for Privy Council, as they do not necessarily happen enough to warrant their own dedicated space. This desk's not quite forming an auditorium, but enough space for advisors to speak without talking over each other. There's a brazier in the centre, but the windows are letting golden sunshine leading in. Behind one desk is Wyatt, leafing through various pieces of parchment and making notes with his aides. He cranes his neck around to us and says, "Ah! Hail, Hydra! I'm glad that we're able to meet before the Privy Council." Cornelius tells Wyatt of Leonidas, who we know little of. He has great influence, but nobody knows how or why. We also know as well that he is perhaps running some sort of project in Griesmold. Griesmoldians are a hermit kingdom, run by their Allfather, if that's even the proper title still. And Wyatt can offer us a writ of commendation to gain us access, as no chorus agents have been able to get in. We do also have a gift from Professor Volmac to allow us entry as well. He hands us over a scroll, the details of which are rather ancient. We ready ourselves for the Privy Council. It's not particularly large, there's only a dozen or so people there, a couple of which we recognise. General Hummel strides in, flanked by Colonel Bruckner. The Queen herself arrives last after other nobles. Others let out applause, and she asks for quiet, taking the head at the table. "Please be seated." The council sits. She looks to everybody. It appears that someone has decided in their impotence to strike at the heart of the kingdom, either via boldness or stupidity. I want your advice to ensure Ostergarthian sovereignty. As for my personal safety, I have the Hydra to thank. If it were not for you, I would not be alive to speak today. Needless to say, you handle Blitzhandingler's contraptions, and, as I understand it, he is in the custody of the capable Redcrests. Noble Paladin, you are an honest and noble sort. What did you find when you confronted this artificer? Dak faces the Queen, bows.
Your Highness, I guess you'll recount the events wherein we found Blitz in the cage. We tried to get him out of the cell to submit to custody. Upon finding that he was resisting, we discovered he was an illusion by an old foe of ours, and a new one to the kingdom, Capac of the Draconians.
The Queen is impressed by this information.
Bruckner says, Draconians? Really? This is the guy that work of the Brackens.
The General raises a hand before and asks for forgiveness, but does mention that these Draconians are mere fishwives' tales. I believe this to be the work of the old menace, the Bracken.
While I would gladly listen to the General, I believe this is temptation for the war dogs to chew their pound of flesh. Let us not forget that we Dragonborn were thought extinct, but here we are. Are we so ready to blame the Bracken, to beat the drums of war? Or do we want silence, to silence the drums of war and hear the soft footsteps of the true enemy? Says Tak, rolling a 27 persuasion. It is true, H.Y.D.R.A is foreign to our people, but he has more than earned his right to speak here. Please, speak with unique insight. Do they prepare for war against us? You may or may not know that we have been to Bracca, and we can all attest to the tranquility Warden wants peace. I may be born of Bracca, but I consider myself a citizen of Alan first. Bracca does not want war. We've seen our fair share of it. We've been ostracized and beaten, and looked down upon as what you can even see even today.
The Queen nods. H.Y.D.R.A rolls persuasion again, 28! With that, Wyatt chimes in.
Your Majesty, what the Herald of the Raven Queen says matches with the whispers I have had. Though they are exceptional at espionage and infiltration, they are not prepared for a full-scale war, nor do they desire it. It appears these Draconians, to which the General's skin reddens, especially after being chastised with the Queen. They may be trying to pit us against one another for a goal we cannot yet unravel. What would you have us do? I think I need more information. It's difficult to make a decision, but thank you, Wyatt, and H.Y.D.R.A Nix. If you do see him again, please, if you do see the Tranquility Ward again, please extend our warmest regards. The General and Colonel are chomping at the bit to argue back, but they keep their cool. Other advisors wish to speak. I wish to raise the point of the Artificer, the Chief Artificer of Drummeth. Yes, Hamdingler. His contraptions nearly kill me.
Yes, they did, Your Highness. When they descended upon the ballroom, they matched the Dragonborn designs of old.
Tak and I consider the old designs. I roll a natural 1 plus 4, and he rolls a natural 20 minus 1! And so we consider this. I understand the mechanisms, but not the origins, and Tak, even though he's not interacted much with Dragonborn, Brethren and Sistren in the Ashen Anglin, he doesn't recognise it. As far as he can tell, this is entirely Ostergarthian.
Our numbers were decimated in the Great Rebellion. We keep to ourselves, and we would not venture so far and announce ourselves so loudly with such war machines.
It is true that the Dragonborn have not done this, but maybe the Bracken has turned Blitz. The General pivots. The General does have a point. Maybe they didn't create it, but Blitz is an unknown. Maybe he was bribed or coerced. We've dealt with the Draconians before. I think I pipe up this point. Or someone else does. We've dealt with the Draconians before, aiding the Sewer King beneath Drummeth, and above the surface of Thunderhelm and bringing forth a dwarven delegation. Arguments are sent back and forth by the General and Tag. Colonel Bruckner approaches and mentions that we do not practice necromancy or blood magics. We found both of these on the side of the crashed airship. We also found evidence of chronomancy, that no one in the kingdom cannot do this except for our Minister of the Interior. We have found evidence of such things, though. We're devising countermeasures against such things. The Queen isn't sure what this means. Yes, Your Majesty. The undead are a blight that affects our lands in Osterkarth. But there are some who are experts in this field. The Free States in particular, especially Griesmold. I've taken it upon myself of speaking to the feudal lords, and able to understand this necromantic menace, to defend against these attacks on our sovereignty. Cornelius is hit with a pang of remembrance. He speaks of Father Leonidas. He tries to grip the table with hatred coursing through his veins. The general continues. He is but a respected noble, and his house holds great influence in dealing with this foreign threat. But as the esteemed paladin has mentioned, should we not be working with our neighbours? Arguments continue, and Tack finishes his thought. We return to talks of Blitz. I propose that all the the general proposes this. I propose that all of the master's artificers' work should enter my command. I believe we could find some interesting uses for it. We would put the instruments which attempted to assassinate the Queen to use. It is true they are abominable, but I merely wish to know what makes them tick. Then who better to see how they tick and put them in the hands of Blitz under careful supervision? The general then twists this into Tack, turning the machines against us. I propose a compromise. The general takes the automatons under his wing, but Blitz and I work at them. I don't roll high enough to convince him, and the Queen places the automatons under Hummel's command. If Blitz is found innocent, the decision may be decided. Cornelius is asked if he is sure about his opinions of Leonidas. The Griesmold is the main authority on tackling the undead. He remains quiet. The Queen considers communication with the Tranquility Warden. Wyatt says that some channels of communication can be opened, if that's what you desire.
Your Majesty, I must protest. What must you say other than to stay away?
Tack rolls 15 persuasion, and while the Queen considers this, she also accepts Hummel's words of caution. He ends by saying that if ever Queen Tom wishes to open up channels of communication to the Warden, the opportunity is always open to her. She considered this. Cornelius would give more counsel, but he feels that the Queen has already made her decision and leaves. We talk more about Leonidas as the council files out. Ostergarthian nobles have been murdered in the Free States, and Wyatt wants to know whom and why. The methods, they appear as accidents. Too much meat and wine falling off the back of a moving wagon, or investigating farming machinery and slipping on misplaced oil. Also regarding Griesmold, whatever your reasons, please investigate their capabilities. No one's been there in generations. There's also sounds of rumblings to the north. In the city-state of Hamar, an economic upheaval. Nothing too untoward, but it may be worth investigating. Anything we can find out would be greatly appreciated. It appears to be gaining a large amount of ships at a significantly greater rate, and they don't appear to have a deep-water port. They're making some of the elders in Thunderhelm a little nervous due to the rich veins they appear to have found. We would meet Cornelius outside and offer him water, and then we decide that we must deal with Leonidas in Griesmold as soon as possible. As we make ready, Captain Cole tells us that the Queen did not want to cause a scene when offering a reward of rescuing her. We are offered 700 gold pieces, 6,000 silver pieces, 2,600 gold pieces, and 70 platinum pieces, as well as a potion of greater healing and a lantern of revealing. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh! Divided, that's 175 copper, 1,500 silver, 650 gold, and 17.5 platinum per person. We decide that we're going to spend a little time in Drummouth before we move on. We go to the orphanage, but on the way, Reckonar uses 300 gold to buy some diamonds for my jumper cables. I must remember to prepare them for when I next rest. We find the vast cathedral dedicated to Malise lovingly and painstakingly turned into a place of creativity, passion, safety, and most importantly, love. We enter and find Omar is safe there, putting the children to bed. We wait for him to return from his duty to the orphans as we listen and hear a familiar voice. Omar singing to the children, his harp in one hand. They look to him drowsily as they listen in. Nobody sang to Cornelius, at least not with compassion. Omar stops and looks to the door where Cornelius waits, the children comforting themselves and readying themselves for another day. Cornelius, I didn't expect to see you here. Your message says Leonidas is alive. He is, and I'm setting off now. I can't let his corruption to spread. I can't believe that he's dead. He was an old decrepit man. He was an old decrepit man when we were young. He got to Zhukov. Oh, hells. You said you'd end the cycle. Are you setting off? Aye, and he's working with Oscarthian military officials. He's connected to everything. When you find Leonidas, what do you intend to do? You know what I have to do. If I gave him a choice, he'd revert to his old ways. Omar sighs, disheartened. If you're truly going to put an end to Leonidas, or whatever this thing is wearing his face, you're going to need all the help you can get. I'm coming with you to see this through to the end. No, Omar Cornelius, you can't face him alone. Look at what happened to Zhukov. Let's be honest, he's coming here next. So if we go together and put our faith in Melee, we can stop him once and for all. I'm coming with you. We'll put an end to the suffering our brothers went through one way or another. Cornelius tears up and grabs onto Omar's arm and holds it. He says, Omar, when my father died and my mom abandoned me at the orphanage, you were the only real friend I had. The only real family I had. When I left the orphanage, I went off into the world to do what I had to do to survive, to try and become stronger. But you always stayed a true friend. And I hold you in the highest regard. I don't deserve such a pure friendship, unbreakable bond, brotherhood. Omar pulls him in for a hug and whispers, to the end. He asks if we have transport, and Cornelius tells him that we have an airship. Well, look at you, you're going up in the world. Literally. You know, phoenixes are thought to arise from the dead, but really, they arise from adversity. I don't know what we'll find out there, but I believe Zhukov can be saved. Maybe then the three of us are done with this adventure malarkey. We can run this orphanage together. I better start. We'll give the kids what we should have had. I like the sound of that. I'll meet you at the air docks, so I'd best pack first. I'd sing to the kids first too and explain to them where I'm going. He exits Cornelius' embrace and returns to the children. As the door closes, all he can hear is the sound of Omar's voice as he begins to the younger children too tired to fight the fatigue. Cornelius takes his share of the Queen's ransom and places it into a box, which is struggling to take the sheer amount of coins he fills it with. The older children and priests cheer at this donation, thinking they'll finally be able to give a great life. Maybe that even the children that had come after them. He takes stock of this place one last time. These children ultimately have an upbringing that he could never have done. He leaves, and we follow. As we exit, we go to the As we exit, we decide to go to the butcher's. As we do, the butcher grapples Ragnar, who tells him,
The missus tells me I can't burst through the wall, so I'm trying something different.
Ragnar tries to twist his arm around and grab him in a chokehold.
I need a favor. Anything, bro. I need an apron, which our friend here can enchant for protection.
protection. The butcher removes from the back of an apron, which has been converted to a cloak. Remember, bro, the protein is forever. So this is an idea that Reckoner and I had, where I was like, okay, I've actually got an attunement slot for, no, an infusion, artificer infusion slot, so I'm going to make you a cloak of protection. And he said, what do you need? Well, you need to get a cloak. I don't have a cloak. How about an apron from the butchers? So we pitched it to the DM and was like, you know what? Let's do it. So now Reckoner has a cloak of protection. Which, yeah, gives him +1 to his armor class. Nice. So yeah, the protein is forever. We make our way back and find that the Astral Phoenix is ready to lift off. Omar has found himself here, laughing with the crew, telling a tale. He's made fast friends. Are we ready? Cornelius asks. Ignis aways and Cornelius says, Griesmold, at full speed. We can't park there, I'm afraid, but we could go to Denmark. We'll do that then. The cook gives me a letter from my family, as well as treats from the party. I cook good things for the party, as well as enchant Ragnar's broke, and to prepare my firearm. I have money to do it now. Ah, it's so good. So good. We joke about needing Cooking Mama and having to share my screen to complete the mini game to get the gang 10 hit points. Yeah, so if I had a DS, this would be a new thing where, in order to use my feet, I have to play Cooking Mama on the DS. Yeah. Oh dear. The next morning, we make our way to Drummond. Black ships of the Protectorate are coming down from the docks. Traders peddling their wares all around. The fighting pit's roaring with activity. There's money in this town. Welcome to Denmark. Cornelius wonders if Narg Stronghammer is here, but he rolls history disadvantage to recall the lore of this hero. He rolls a net 1, so no, we have a chuckle about Narg. For context, Narg Stronghammer was the first character that Cornelius Bonaparte played, their player played, and it was in a one-shot called "Something's Rotten in the City-State of Denmark." It's a really good one-shot. I recommend it from Adventures Await, yeah, it's and like he just came out like Cornelius player, would you like to introduce Nargstronger? And he's like, I am Narg Stronghammer, second of the 2 Hammer clan, champion of Griesmold, and so on and so forth. And he really got into the character, and it's like he got an inspiration just for the intro. So that was really good. And he was an Orc Barbarian, because, you know, that's all, you know, or half-Orc Barbarian. I think. Or Barbarian, I'm not sure. I think he was like an ordinary Orc. So yeah. And it was funny. And yeah, and so like we were told like, you know, what you do here might have an effect on the campaign. So yeah. And I played an arcane cleric. Yeah, that went well. I think I actually hit something once in this entire one shot. But yeah, it was interesting. Yeah. But yeah, it was good. So yeah, so we don't know anything about Narg Stronghammer yet, I'm afraid. As we land, we search around. Many nobles move about, some scurrying as they prefer not to be quite seen here as much as they would in their homelands. Cornelius squats and stretches, choosing to ride a horse rather than provide a cart. He's squatting rather badly, and Racconar just counts 0, 0, 0. Yeah. And Cornelius says his body is neither warm nor cool, just in trouble. As he explains to Omar the importance of these exercises, Omar notices there's cushions inside the cart, rather than to walk, or rather to ride the horse. Cornelius writes to Maya in a quiet corner of the city-state. Dearest Maya, I am sorry I never got to say goodbye to you properly. I've had to set off on a great journey, with Hydra and my dear friend Omar, to meet and challenge and hopefully vanquish this great evil that had been brought upon our land, upon the world, and upon the lives of Omar and I when we were boys. It would take too much parchment to explain all that has happened, but should I live through this adventure, I shall tell of every step I've taken to complete this adventure. Since starting this adventure, I've performed actions and schemes to make myself more rich and powerful, to make life more comfortable, but neither my party, nor does Omar, know nothing of what I've done to get this far. And I would change nothing. That if I were taken back in time to reach this moment again, I would not hesitate. If I do not come back, my love for you is in the stars and the moon and the sun above, and should you look up, you shall be reminded of our love. If I do not come back, know this, loving you eternally, Cornelius P. Bonaparte. He slides it into his satchel and begins walking to the carriage. Omar removes his harp and says this could pass the time. We move on, and the opulence before us gives way. Leaving Denmarsh green and gold, it seems like endless fields of wheat stretch out before us. As we leave the territory of Denmarsh, we make our way into the territory of Griesmold. As some of us know, Griesmold is the largest of the feudal kingdoms, split into many fiefdoms. The rest of the world doesn't take them seriously. Backwater kingdoms, savage kingdoms, some may say. But people live here. Real lives with real jobs and real passions. These people have soul. Some wave to us before continuing with their work. The sun hangs low in the sky, and we break to make camp. In the morning, this idyllic realm of nothing but green pastures that go on and on. Watch we on watch spot two figures coming towards us. Figures that are making no effort to hide whatsoever. They appear to be walking, not running, and armed and armoured, but their weapons are stone. It's morning. Cornelius sends out a message cantrip asking who they are. They respond by saying, We'd like to introduce ourselves. Cornelius relays this back. He considers our positions. Reckonar sends Nero up into the sky and spots only those two. I reckon we can take them, and by we, I mean you, says Cornelius. They approach, and the smaller of the figures approaches. The livery on their person is a lordly house. A towering silver dragonborn knight holds a shield with a platinum dragon upon it. Bahamut. The other wears a helmet, and Reckonar's player introduces G.E.E.S.E, the crit fisher of Griesmold. G.E.E.S.E was introduced in a one-shot that we did not too long ago. Yeah. It was him. There was my character, Old Grimhammer, and what was the other? Oh yes, there was Slayer of Goblins as well. And yeah, no prizes for guessing what that's a reference to. If you don't know, please don't look it up. Great anime. Horrible scenes and implications in a lot of things. No, it makes me shudder. Yeah. So yeah, G.E.E.S.E just constantly getting crits for days, crits on toast, crits in my pants. G.E.E.S.E is an orange tiefling, and I was actually going to make a character called Garnet. Garnet, another tiefling who was an archer. She's like an arcane archer fighter, and yeah, and she would have been a red tiefling. Why did I go for Old Grimhammer instead? Ah! Never mind. G.E.E.S.E is an orange tiefling with small horns and a thin tail. His armour is tattered and worn, and he has a cloak. He appears to be following the bigger guy, almost as if he's a squire. We've been sent by the king to see you won't cause any trouble. I am G.E.E.S.E, and this is...
I am Torgadon. What business do you have here in Griesmold?
I think for Torgadon's icon, the artist was twitch.tv/Steve Sketches. It may have done Jasper's as well, I'm not entirely sure. Some of these documents, so we present to him the writ of commendation and as well Volmac's a gift.
Some of these documents hark back to the birth of the kingdom.
We're here for something more than a bit of a casual meeting with someone. I take it from these seals of authenticity. The situation is most dire, wouldn't you say? Yes, yes. You must seek the king. Your outsiders get to meet him, if ever. But given this letter, I believe this certain someone is a threat to both our peoples. The old pacts remain true. We accept their invitation and are escorted to the kingdom. We move on and find the roads are well maintained and well paved. There was once a great civilization here. As children run by our wagons, we wonder where that civilization could have gone. The journey takes us further, and Jasper and H.W.D.R.A keep themselves when we rest. We see just wait a second. And we see a green glow across the horizon. We think we hear voices. Constant chittering. In our heads. Jasper turns. We're almost there. They'll probably be just over this next ridge. Then we'll be at the Griesmold. It won't be quite what you'll expect. No outsider has ever been here in many a generation. I don't think... Well, you'll see there. Ask. Sorry if I'm pointing out the obvious, but does anyone else hear that?
Aye, we can hear that.
As we continue our grim march into the grim city-states of Griesmold. We continue, working our way to a pervasive light, a green, sickly hue. It's daytime. It's morning. Why is it getting dark? Then we realise that we're crossing a veil. We hear what appears to be thousands upon thousands of boots marching. We hear chanting from thousands of throats. We see what appears to be legions upon legions of spectral figures march in unison toward a citadel. "Welcome to Griesmold," says Jasper, as the giant fortress beckons over what appears to be rows of doom guides leading the dead to their final destination. And that's where session 36 ends. But I'm also recapping session 37 as well. What great time we're making as well. So let me just change my images up a bit. Jasper and H.W.D.R.A are knights of Griesmold, undead hunters, and have guided us here to the throne of the Darklands themselves. Giant grey buildings surround us, with a giant basilica that dwarfs us. What we think is candlelight is funeral pyres ahead, as we're brought towards one of the many cathedrals here. Large, obstinate granite doors shudder, beginning to tremble open. Inside there appears to be nothing but a greyish haze, light slowly absorbed by it. We stand in front of the throne room of Griesmold. Doom knights and doom guides hold up their halberds in ceremony. H.W.D.R.A looks to his comrade. His jovial nature briefly slips, and Jasper sees hesitance. "I've never been here, old friend." "The throne awaits. Come, let us march on." And so they do. The party follows. As we move, the chanting around us sees us. There's nothing surrounding us save for the all-consuming miasma. We're aware of our friends around us, and as we can see them in the gloom, instinctively staying together. But it is that instinct that makes us stop. In the haze, After what seems like a long walk, something begins to move in the distance. Something large. Something that seems impossible given the size of the building. A humanoid, we think. For a brief moment, we think it is a Doom Guide, but the proportions are all off. It's titanic. It leans towards us. In one hand, we think it holds a set of scales, and in the other hand, the form of a greatsword. Through the gloom, we see a large skull-like visage come through, made of onyx. 2 tiny pupils radiate. The energy is not necrotic, but it's hard to tell, it's distant. It's like a boy regarding an ant. It speaks. There is a usurper among us. Cornelius feels it is regarding him, out of all of us. Who, is this usurper? The usurper must be destroyed. It continues to speak to us. Are you telling me that we should destroy it, or that I am the usurper? You know the usurper by another face, Herald of Melee. Cornelius sighs relief. Is it, Father Leonidas? The usurper wears the face of a man who may have once been Father Leonidas. Now he is something worse. Unclean. Unholy. And it must be judged! Boom! And a shockwave emanates from the still metal jaw, as we're all rocked when it passes over us, but we're able to maintain our composure. Who or what are you? Asks Cornelius. Turns to him. And Torgadin immediately takes his blade and kneels, plunging the sword into the ground. I am the Scales. I am sometimes misconstrued as the god of death. I have brought death in an old life. There is nothing left of that man now. I am Kelemvor. I am the balance in the life of mortals. I decide where the souls go. The usurper would take my tithe and use it for its own means. This cannot pass. It continues to regard Cornelius steadily. You seem mighty. Cornelius does not mock Kelemvor by doing that. You seem mighty, and you seem to have a large army, but why haven't you dealt with them? The usurper is but upon us. Gods cannot pass beyond the veil, and it must remain that way. The souls which come here, they allow us to keep the breach in check. The mortals of this realm ultimately must carry out our will, lest we face calamity. Do you not wish to bring balance, Herald of Melee? I definitely want to bring balance. Definitely want to bring balance. Torgadin bows his head and Jesper watches. He's heard stories of Bahamut, and this is not Bahamut. Jesper can't read the room at all. The eyes of the skull fixed on a rather small, portly man who he just met. Not the paladin, not the officer of the Kingdom of Ostergarth, not the bemuscled half-orc. No, the priest. Jesper tells us to Cordan. The eyes roll to Jesper slowly. He feels entire body racked with a crushing weight, and feels compelled to do one thing. Kneel. The threads of fate have beckoned you to deal with this usurper. It remains beyond my sight. You shall escort these mortals, and together you shall slay this cretin. The skull's eyes loll back to Cornelius and flash. Details begin to appear in Cornelius' mind. Locations, people, items. A lair. Children being marched toward it by undead creatures with rictus grins, pallid, patchy skin with decaying leather armor, wickedly curved swords. And there is a figure. cloaked in a mockery of what would be the robes of Malay, tattered and defiled. There is a face that is impossibly young. Leonidas looks at him as the skull booms. You see your prey. Go now. Destroy the usurper. Leonidas is seemingly looking right at Cornelius, but something looms behind him. A figure of blood, nerves and sinew, leeching out in supplication. The children are walking towards it as he sees them one by one into the gloom. The skull begins to withdraw into the grey. Torgadon stands. Sheathes his sword and turns to Jasper. It appears we are tasked, old friend. Duty calls. Now we must answer. He looked towards Cornelius. He is inexplicitly of a place we've never been before. I throw my head back to see if the skull is still there, but fearing I'll be lost to this place, I join the party. We charge out the doors, which swing shut, locking behind the Doom Guides within. Oh, kill 'em all! Oh! We find ourselves back at the wagon, with Marvin, Thanatos, and Cannibal. All who seem nervous, but ready for whatever awaits. They've been through worse. Jasper hands us each a glass bottle. I don't know what's going to happen, and doesn't seem like it'll go well, but please, take these. Torgadon made these for me. They've come in handy. If you don't use them, I'd like them back, please. Hopefully we won't need them. As he hands us a bottle of holy water each. Perhaps you'd be best riding in the wagon and learn more about this Hydra. Torgadon says to Jasper as he casts Fine Greater Steed and summons, for a brief moment, fog descending on us as we become aware of something large flying towards us. For a second we don't believe our eyes. A horse as white as snow, with wings as crystalline as pearl, descends as Torgadon mounts Pegasus. I will be watching closely.
We march!
He calls as the Pegasus wings beat down to soar into the sky. Omar looks rather nervously, but remains in the wagon. Tak is conflicted about how he feels. The Raven Queen hates undeath, but at the same time, this appears to be the greater good. Oh, kill 'em all! Oh, Lord of the Judge of the Damned! Rakanar sharpens his axe, and Jasper looks at the party anxiously. Cornelius is fully prepared to get the job done. Omar and Jasper speak. There's a great apprehension on the priest's face. Jasper asks, how come he only talked about your friend, not you? You seem to have similar backgrounds. Malay has plans for all of us. Perhaps this plan is for Cornelius, not I. I must admit I'm scared. Leonidas, this man, this thing. If there ever was evil, Leonidas would play its part. I feel glad we're going toward him, but I also feel apprehension. I feel like we'll find nothing but pain upon encountering him. You keep saying this name, Jasper says. Do you know him? This man, one could say, was our father. His tan skin is similar to Cornelius in this light. We're both orphans, but what of you, Jasper? What of your family? Jasper frowns. The fighting his own father would not make sense. I have both my mother and father, but had to leave them to be here. I'm not sure what will happen or why. I've seen things like your friend, and that's how I met Torgadon, and I'm sorry. I can't imagine what horror you'll face. He's not a real father, of course, but he's a cruel man. I barely remember my parents. I have some memory of my mother. She turned to alcohol, you see. Until the end I would pray that she would awaken, that she would be fine. May I sing, Jasper? He begins to sing. As cynical as Jasper is, Omar's voice makes him think of a scared young tiefling. A tiefling almost alone, surrounded by strangers, much like he is now. cradling his own mother. Her face barely recognisable, for it's been caved in through such violence as he remembers. As though the transformation that his mother went through, he still saw in her eyes the love that she had for him. A reference to the Slayer of Goblins one-shot character. He remembers her suffering, her and her father, as Omar continues to sing. Even as Cornelius goes forward and Marvin, he hears the singing and puts his head down, urging his horse to go faster. As we navigate the paths of Griesmold, we pass various fields of grey, and occasionally a solitary knight sits on horseback on a hill, raising their sword and salute. But there's nothing here, nothing but a mote of dust. But all through the journey in Omar's voice, which motions his horse forward. We're travelling hard. Everything matches, every tree, every contour, but in the centre of it is the orphanage. The orphanage that Cornelius and Omar remember. Like for like, it is the exact same as they remember in H.W.D.R.A. The wagon slows until Gadon arrives. Halting, Cornelius dismounts Marvin and gazes upon the orphanage in disbelief. It's as if the one in H.W.D.R.A. was lifted up and dropped here. Omar's hand finds itself on Cornelius' shoulder. You must promise me this. What is it, friend? Whatever happens, should you survive, whatever we encounter in there, promise me that orphanage in Taramuth, promise me you'll look after those children. We'll be looking after those children together. We're gonna make this place better. A place not of cruelty, but of love, of passion. Let's go build a future for those children. Whatever happens, it ends. Omar holds out his hand. Cornelius embraces him. Omar was always the softer of the two of them, and Cornelius had a lot more street smarts. To the end, brother. Omar whispers. To the end. And we step forward into the orphanage. We step out into the rain and walk into the orphanage. It's exactly the same. Children would enter and dump their few personal belongings into a chest before them. A small portrait of a mother and father of what he had left in H.W.D.R.A. One of the staff ripped it from his hand and stuffed it into a box remarkably similar before him. The Hydra stands with you. Thank you for coming with me on this journey. I wouldn't trade you for any money, any residence, any armies, or an ounce of power. It's only right that, in case I don't make it, as our mortality has been tested many times, but this is where I want you to know about the real Cornelius P. Bonaparte. When I started this journey in Little Water, I wasn't who I said I was. I was no priest, Emily. Common man. Not even common. Scum of the earth, a thief, a con artist. I broken into a priest's house to steal, to make a quick buck. That's where I found the letter from Professor Volmack. That's where I hatched my scheme. Along the way, I'd been taught so many lessons. I've connected to Malie. Malie's connected with me. I found meaning in my life, the furthest of our journeys went. The more I tried to bury my past is the problem. Here, in the present, is where I'll attack my past head on. And I'll start a bright new future. And if I can't, I'll die. But I refuse to live with my past, burning up my past layer after layer. And I apologize to you, my comrades. Please, help me defeat Leonidas. Help me break this cycle. Cornelius looks to us. I say, Cornelius, under different circumstances I'd have you arrested for this. But you've shown me, you've all shown me that it's not who we are that matters, it's what we will become. And what we do with our deeds. I believe that this is your trial by fire. Whatever happens, you'll have repented. But, in truth, I think you've actually already repented so many times before. It would be wrong of me to think you a thief and a liar. When you've saved my life, you've shown how good a person you are. Ragnar nods. I've been cut many times. And this is different. I agree with Katyusha. You've come too far. You have proven yourself a trusted ally. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna punch you for this betrayal. And he just knocks him slightly in the shoulder. Ragnar says jokingly. And Cornelius bows his head. Jack looks over at him and places his hand on his shoulder. It's finally good to meet you, old friend, he says with an understanding smile. Cornelius grabs his arm sensually and says, thank you, dear friend. We head inside at last. The orphanage is as Cornelius remembers. The pews are where the little boys had to wait, remembering being scared here. Leonidas' office is just across the courtyard, and all we have to do is face his terrors. This is the waiting room, the hall. Perhaps we should go to where the old office was. And so we head through the chapel, where Leonidas would scold the boys for their skins, and how they should give themselves to the work. It's in the courtyard where the boys would say a quick word, take a quick moment for a quick embrace, and carry on with their day. We stack up around the door to the office. It was a place of pain for Cornelius and Omar. He had that fight or flight response there, and he always felt flight. This place terrified him more than anywhere else on his adventures. He swings the door open, and there is Leonidas' desk, the spot where he'd take his canings and his scoldings. He could swear for a moment that he could smell the copper tang of dried blood on the lacerations that the previous boy had taken. Inside there appears to be no movement. At least, right now. This is where Leonidas kept his records, and most of his papers on administration. Never really wanted to come to this place. Never really wanted to come to this place. Gods, we were children. He beat us till we were blue, Omar says, entering if only to assure himself rather than Cornelius. Cornelius rolls perception with advantage with Omar's help. 19 and 23, so they say 23. Even after all this time, Cornelius can tell what's off, what doesn't belong here, and he finds a shrine at the end of the office. Window, doors are at the end of it. The shrine is not what he remembers. The shrine is subtle. First he thinks it's an effigy to Melee, with various strands of the symposium of life weaving to create the universe. As he wipes off the dust, he gets chills. He's seen this figure before. Almost suspended in air on a plinth is the Hollow King. Each nerve, each ounce of sinew is revealed. Something about the statue draws him even as the room feels colder. Omar! Quickly! As Cornelius calls him over, Omar looks pale as he looks at the statue. The shrine! This abomination! Do you think we can use this to get to him? I don't know. Quickly! Call for the others! Cornelius tells us everything here is exactly as it was, except the statue of the Hollow King. This was a shrine to Melee. Leonidas would use it to guilt us into being stronger, being worth more than dirt. But nothing about this is right. The dreams we have. Whenever we see the visions, what does the vision always ask us of us? Make us whole? As he says it, the room changes somehow. Torgadon sniffs the air.
I smell evil. Nothing could produce such an unholy stench.
A portal domesticized? in front of Cornelius, like a cancer in reality, with purplish light shining through, a green glow around its rim. We echo my sentiment of to the end as we go through, as we each pass through the light. We're almost blinded by pulsing purple crystal. The light is so intense, and it sits atop something, a square pyramid. We search for the term ziggurat comes to mind, as we think we're in some kind of cavern. As we look over the crystal, we see a caldera, and atop it we see the stars. It was night time when we got here. There are figures here, pale, pallid, one figure chained next to the crystal. Cornelius doesn't see this though. As soon as he steps through, he sees something else. As for the rest of us, we roll initiative. Leonidas turns to us. Welcome, disciples. Have you come to seek illumination? For this is where you will find it. Whether you come willing or not, I shall illuminate you. Cornelius has stepped through the portal, but there's rain on his face. He's in the courtyard. It's just him. He looks around, calmer than he should be. He's remembering the times he stayed at the orphanage and the times he met Malie in the form of Omar. As he looks around, this courtyard looks a little bit more lush. There's life here. As a little boy almost slams into him and runs off past him. He thinks he recognizes the boys. One of the orphans when he was here. He recognizes them as Carl. There's lots of other boys scurrying around as he recognizes them all from the orphanage. But at the age he was at the orphanage, he follows off towards Carl's direction. Carl stops and turns to hiss, "You're of a different class to me this period. Yours is the other way." Cornelius says, of course." His voice is higher pitched now. Of course," and scurries off the other way. "I've got to get to class before Leonidas gets me," Cornelius Player says in a higher pitched tone. A monk stands in front of a slate board, and other boys file in. "I'm glad you ordained to join us, Mr. Bonaparte." "Sorry, Monk Darius. Would you care to teach the lessons, seeing as you deign to arrive so late?" says the monk. Cornelius remembers answering back. He does not this time. "Well, it appears Mr. Bonaparte is learning some manners." There's no nervous chuckles, only silence. He sits and listens to various parts of scripture. As he listens now, it doesn't sound like Malie. There's talks about how we can rebirth, how we can bring our Saviour forth. Our bell is rung, and it's time for lunch. And we return to the ziggurat. The problem with doing 2 really long session recaps in one video is it's murder on the throat. And I've got another one to do as well. This is what happens when this is what happens for being lazy. Dear. I do enjoy doing them though, and these are very good sessions. Raccanar grips his axe and eyes Cornelius, who is not the most physically proficient head to the physically proficient head to the Hydra. Raccanar leaps to the stairs and readies his attacks to await the incoming undead. Tat looks at the steps, which are manageable, but the ledges leading up to them have bodies piling up, creating difficult terrain. He misty steps behind Leonidas, and a cloud of raven feathers engulfs him to face the father. He swings for the hills and rolls 23 with his katana. This thing is not just a schoolmaster, it's something supernatural. It turns with lightning speed and swats the katana with a side as a burst of necrotic energy flares from his face. It's a miss. He rolls 27 to hit again with his extra attack, as though he's bat aside, but focuses on his faith, remembering his mission, a lesson from his travels. The slow blade pierces the shield, he's told. as he brings his arm back and plunging the blade slowly through Leonidas' chest with sadistic motion. He rolls 35 damage with Radiance. He takes a legendary action to turn to him and slam his palm into Takavira's chest to deal 5 bludgeoning damage. He then tries to drink from Takavira's very essence with a mind siphon. A wave of necrotic energy blasts him, but it washes over him with an int save of 18, dealing only 13 points of psychic damage. Torgadon runs up with his shield and sword in hand, casting Hunter's Mark on Leonidas. He then tries to launch a sacred flame, but is unable to pierce the father's soul. Jasper recognises the figure all those years ago, when he joined the Slayer of Goblins and Old Grimhammer. See the Lost Man of Fandelver session recaps to know who that is. To save his mother, he launches a crossbow bolt, then deals 6 plus 17 sneaker damage. 6 plus 17 sneaker damage. At Leonidas. Why can't I do that in Baldur's Gate 3? Come on! Who is surprised by the attack. In response, he's filled with images of the Slayer of Goblins smashing the tiefling matriarch's skull with his fist. Yeah, that was a pretty grim episode, one-shot that we did. I feel horrible. The Draugr sink into the ground and erupt in front of the party members. One of them gets knocked down by Targadon as its arm locks under his, and his shield bashed to the ground due to a 1 on its life drain attack. Attack takes 6 damage, and his max HP is reduced by that amount. Jasper sliced by it for 13 points of damage, but uses an uncanny dodge to knock it down to half, which only deals 6 points of damage. Nice. Rakanar is barely harmed, and in response with his readied action, he slices downward on a crit 29 to deal the most damage possible the first attack on one of these. I think they're whites, I can't remember. Whites or Reavers or something like that. I couldn't quite tell you, I'm afraid. The Draugr, sorry, they're Draugr. Yeah, so like a lot of fighters have been focusing on this. I call upon Gond, Malie, the Raven Queen, and Kalimvor, whoever is there to provide a branding smite, and launch a bullet at the Draugr, trying to attack Omar.
You're goddamn right, you're in for some illumination!
And it's holding on, so that Draugr is still holding on, so I pump in an Arcane Jolt and slash it with Brave Song. I think it's high time I brought in some playmates for you children, since that is how you fight! Leonidas summons a zombie clot. I wasn't here for the session where we first met the zombie clot, but they're fucking terrifying. It's basically just like a massive amount, it's just basically a pile of bodies making up another big body. I think there's actually like a Clive Barker short story about that actually. Like it's like a festival where people like sort of make a giant person, except in this story it falls over and kills people. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's Clive Barker. Of course it's gonna be horrible. So, yeah. So Omar is shaking Cornelius, still in the courtyard in his trance. Come on, we've got to go! He finally breaks out his harp and gives Takavira a D10 inspiration. Your blade, Takavira! It sings a song of hope! Don't let the song die out! Cornelius remains in his trance. A child tugs on his robes. Omar, as a child, shakes his robe. Come on! You'll remember what happens when we're late for lunch! They go to the cafeteria. There's no monks here. It's unusual, but he does see Zukov. He's being picked on. The larger boy is picking on him. This looks like a nice bit of dessert right here. Looks like it'll sit better in my belly. Glad that's not us, said Cornelius. Someone should deal with it, just for once. Cornelius, if you go, I'll go too. Make ourselves a target. First the monks and now the bigger boys. It's Zukov's problem. Charisma 14. He snaps back to reality and sees Zukov chained to a purple crystal. The chaos of storm and battle takes place, and he returns. He's returned to the cafeteria and charges to the first big kid. Get away from him, he says. Omar is amazed. I never thought he'd listen to me. The big kid is swung at, and back in reality the ziggurat flashes. A smugness from Leonidas' face vanishes. What are you doing?
What are you doing? You'll ruin everything!
The big kid in the cafeteria. Says, "What are you doing, Cornelius? Why are you standing up for this dweeb? It's people like you who make the world a better, worse place." He swings with his tiny fist, and the big kid towers over him. "In that case, I'll have to smash in Zhukov's face with your face. How about that?" "Everyone, run!" yells Cornelius, with Omar grabbing him and Zhukov. They run, and Cornelius shouting, "See you later, butt eaters!" Oh dear. Psychic damage critical. They round the corner and see Father Leonidas. He sees the bigger kids also. "What seems to be going on here, Mr. Bonaparte?" "I imagine there's an explanation, Mr. Patton." The bigger boys picking on Zhukov, it's not right." "I believe an example needs to be made. Isn't that right, Cornelius?" Yes, but maybe just detention." "I have a better idea. Follow me into the courtyard." The group follows as the bigger boys try to escape, but the monks catch them and bring them to their knees. "Come here, Bonaparte." Yes, sir," says Cornelius. Leonidas grabs one of the boys and lifts his head. Very calmly, Leonidas says, "Slash his throat." "Slash his throat? Isn't that a little extreme?" Cornelius, disobeying? Maybe there's other means." The other children sob and beg. A monk slams his fist into the back of the boy's neck and snarls for silence. The knife in Cornelius' hand is a delight. It's not a weapon of war, it's not a steak knife, but definitely a sharpened dinner knife. The memory is ice cold steel in his mind. He rolls a charisma save, 28, to cause this reality to fade. A white light blinds him and a soft voice comes to him. "We always have a choice, Cornelius. Cruelty is a choice. Evil is a choice. Do you remember?" The sing-song voice says. Memories of his months with the Hydra, when it feels like a year, flood into his mind. He looks to Omar and Zhukov. Omar is so ever slightly shaking his head. So well does Cornelius know him. Leonidas is giant to all present. His adult voice comes to mind. "Break the cycle, Cornelius!" The shaking stops. He holds the knife. And he screams, "Run!" as he sets upon Leonidas, attempting to stab him in the thigh. Leonidas lets out a howl of agony, and the boys scatter. There's a flash of light. It looks like he's in the midst of a pitched battle. His friends, Hydra, that was their name, engaging all these undead around them. A mass of writhing limbs fall upon them, and Zhukov's eyes beam with light as the chains become loose. He inspires Omar and says, "Together!" Rakanar swings for another natural 20 at the Draugr before him and leaps toward the zombie clot beginning to form. He sends Nero to dive on the Draugr, bouncing back and returning to where Rigsby was. Tagaria Misty steps out to Leonidas. Misty steps out of Leonidas' grapple and swings at Leonidas with 29 damage, almost decapitating him. What would ordinarily be a mortal blow is fastened together by evil ooze. The second attack sees Leonidas attempt to cast a spell, but Tak rolls damage to break whatever enchantment he was trying to invoke, dealing 22 damage. Leonidas calls for an int 14 save from Tak, and he gets 14 on the nose. Leonidas' Mind Siphon doesn't work as well. Tak only takes 14 damage. He moves so fast with the legendary move to vanish and reappear behind the ziggurat, behind the amethyst atop the ziggurat. Torgadan rolls to hit the Draugr around him, and Jasper tries to swing at the Draugr and misses, but he's an expert with his crossbow, so he can shoot without disadvantage, killing one before him. The Draugr try to wander, but two fail with nat ones. Leonidas says, "Oh, you fools, I shall do this myself," and uses a legendary action to teleport behind Cornelius and Leonidas. A 15 hits Omar, raking across his chest, attempting to grapple Omar, lifting him off the ground. The pile of extremely small bones form, and we're given sound effects from the last time there was one. The zombie clot. It's like the zombie clot sound effects are the xenomorph. No, was it xenomorph? Not xenomorph. I'm fairly certain it was like something morph. I don't know, the thing, the monsters from Dead Space. It's all there, like sort of noises. Yeah. So, yeah, it tries to slam the zombie clot tries to slam Rackenart and is unable to break his Herculean might, and Torgadon takes bludgeoning damage as he cannot resist. At 26 hits him and he takes 16 damage. It's frantic in its anger. I shoot at Leonidas. The first shot pierces his flesh, but the second is deflected by his billowing cloak. Omar fails his save against the Mind Siphon. Leonidas turns to Cornelius and tells him that he shall be Leonidas' legacy. He rolls 17 intelligence for a save, but he takes 12 damage. His anxiety bubbles to the surface, but he swallows it down like black bile. Omar is being choked to death. Omar makes it out of the grip using a bardic inspiration and Rigsby's help. He sings a familiar melody and weakly wheezes, "To the end, Cornelius! To the end!" Cornelius is granted bardic inspiration, and Leonidas flinches. Cornelius reaches out to Omar and heals him with the Cure wounds, 25 hit points. Omar plays with greater inspiration, and it seems to have an effect on Leonidas. Cornelius takes out his flute and rolls 25 performance. The cycle breaks today. The cycle will continue. I will break you. I broke you before, says Leonidas, clearly weakened. Rackenart swings at the zombie clot, dealing little damage but keeping its attention while focusing on Nero. Nero head bonks Leonidas, but isn't enough to distract him and flies away. Takafria focuses on the Drogo around him, all around him within 10 feet, bringing down an Eye of the Storm. Cue, Ride the Lightning, as 14 damage engulfs the Draugr and unfortunately Torgadon and Zukov. Torgadon assists Tak with the Draugr, but with a nat 1+9 he stumbles down the stairs and Jasper just dodges out of the way. Jasper uses his short sword to deal 6 plus natural 2. Huh? Yeah, whatever. Just 2 damage. Oh no, natural 22. Sorry, natural 22 damage to the Draugr, stabbing it for 28 damage total. He then leaps from the stairs and yells out to Leonidas, "Why us? Why?" Leonidas asks, "We are all bound, Jasper. I wonder what happens." The Draugr try to hit Tak, and out of 4 attacks, only 1 hits. 7 points of necrotic damage for a life drain, reducing his maximum health by 7 again. The zombie clot launches entomb flesh upon me. Oh, hang on. I've lost where I was in my notes. Okay, yeah, upon me. A clump of bodies are launched and engulf me. The light dimming as undead wrap around me, and I'm restrained. On my turn, I roll a 0 on a strength saving throw. I roll 0. And take 13 bludgeoning damage as the emaciated arms combine to crush the light out of my light and life and air out of my lungs. A portal tears above the crystal, a figure of blood, nerves and sinew, as Cornelius now sees the figure of the Hollow King. Leonidas springs his arms out. "You will not stop his ascension." He attacks Cornelius, but a 19 int save prevents Leonidas from doing any damage. Omar ducks as Leonidas tries to backhand him. Omar says, "It's the music. The music is how we beat him." Cornelius plays and rolls performance 27. He finds himself as an adult in the courtyard. Leonidas stands before him, Zukov sulking behind. He's playing the music. "I gave you a chance. Your father brought you here, you scum. Lower than that, I gave you shelter. Are you not grateful for the second chance I gave you?" Cornelius keeps playing, not even acknowledging the threatening figure before him. "What of you, Omar? Think you're different? You're doing the same thing. What of the little girl a few months ago? No, that's different." Cornelius approaches and notices Omar being charmed. Cornelius? Cornelius uses counter charm. Ooh, counter charm. Leonidas walks towards Cornelius and walks through him towards Zhukov. Perhaps this little one will help me, as Zhukov is weeping openly in front of them. Zhukov reverently brushes his hand upon Zhukov's cheek. He'll take a legendary action to dimension door to Zhukov. He grabs Zhukov, bites into his throat. Blood spurts off to the sides as Leonidas attempts to regenerate himself on Zhukov's life essence for maximum health. You cannot stop his coming. The Hollow King shall rule all of us, and I shall be his herald, not you. I shall make us whole. Ragnar swings at the zombie clock, realising that this is the bigger issue. Quite literally. He deals 21 damage and goes for a backswing, chopping at it again. Nero comes to the rescue and tries to scrape the bodies from me. Attack, tired of these games, uses 3 charges of Call the Lightning to summon a storm 100 foot above the Duragar. The Duragar? Excuse me, the Drauka. Not the Duragar! We need them! And needs them to roll a dex save versus being slammed with lightning bolts. They each do 19 damage and crushes the undead into the ground with the hammer-like wrath of Vulca. He then marches menacingly to Leonidas, behind a barrier that's been disrupted by means he does not understand. Leonidas tries to mind siphon but can't, nor can he scrape through Tak's armor and snarls in frustration. Torgadon moves up, but the zombie clout reaches to hit and deals 24 points of damage. Leonidas tries to get into Leonidas' face by swinging at him. Tell me, why? Breaking his stealth rather. Leonidas snaps towards him as he's struck with a short sword for 8 damage. If you unmake me, boy, your mother and father will cease to exist, and you'll be the scared little child you were. But together we can save them. He makes a whiz save of 17, just making it, and Torgadon reminds him of his duty. That this is just a lie. Zhukov tells the party, the music. Tell Omar and Cornelius to must maintain the music. He slumps back to the ground. Zombie clot poisons everyone around us and knocks Nero unconscious. I remain entombed, as does Ragnar now, and Rigsby rolls a 1 to free me, getting grappled by one of the grasping hands. Leonidas starts music. Music! What is music to the power of a god? Torgadon takes 31 psychic damage and realising he's the weak link, Leonidas swings with a 2. He tries to claw Jasper again for 2, the haymaker coming around, being telegraphed well enough for them both to duck beneath it. Omar says, Cornelius, we need to get up there to stop the Hollow King. Are you with me? Cornelius dimension doors himself and Omar to the top of the stairs when it's his turn, and Omar readies his action. Torgadon is targeted by Leonidas for another swing of 12 points of damage, the light leaving his eyes. He hears the great flapping wings of a dragon, but vanishes from consciousness. Tak is being hit with Mind Siphon. The onslaught of psychic attacks upon him causes him 28 points of damage, which looks like his soul. There's nothing but the boy. You're nothing but the boy from the blacksmiths. You were cast out, even though the people of Braga couldn't stand you. Your faltered a Raven Queen pales in comparison to the Hollow King. Cornelius rolls 33 performance atop the ziggurat. The chaos begins to subside as he plays. There's nothing but music. He describes now how he stops the machinations of Father Leonidas. Together he and Omar play the music, and even in this pitched battle do we sense calmness. Jade musical notes cascade and wrap around the portal. The antagonist, the players, and even Nero. There's calm. The portal collapses in on itself, and we see the horrified look of Leonidas. The portal crunches smaller and smaller and smaller until it's vanished into oblivion. With that, the Hollow King reaches through the portal, and Leonidas calls, "No! No!" He bares his teeth. It doesn't end like this. It doesn't end like this. He slams the personal crystal. If I am thwarted, then you shall not leave this place alive. The amethyst orb shatters, and time slows down. The clot of failed disciples is blown away to ash. The remainder of the corpse is cast aside, and Fire the Leonidas enacts his final revenge upon us all. The portal detonates, and musical notes crush Leonidas. He explodes the party down the ziggurat, and they slam into the ground. We all wake up. See, time has passed. Cornelius finds himself unable to stand, but his missiles seize up. He looks toward the ziggurat and sees to the horror that the crystal is still there. There's a tear in the fabric of reality. He can't see the Hollow King, but he can still see the tear. He looks to Omar. It must have been his final trap, his failsafe. We have to seal it, so the Hollow King can't come through. Even with a tear that small, we can't risk it. Cornelius watches Zukov. It must not affect on vampirics. He makes his way to the tear. Cornelius calls out, No, Zukov, you don't do that! He ascends, ignoring Cornelius' words. Omar stumbles forward as Zukov calls that he's not strong enough. Omar calls back on his clothing and shows that even through all the blood, bite marks. No, Omar, we can fix this. We can help Zukov too. Zukov, come down, we can solve this! The tear expands, and the Hollow King's crimson tendrils reach through. Omar says, I know what I have to do. I know how to make it whole. Cornelius, do you remember your promise? Oh, Omar, please, no, don't do this. Cornelius is using every inch of strength to move. Through sheer will, he can grind his head to speak, but anything from the neck down betrays him. Omar embraces him. You're never alone, Cornelius. But we did it. Broke the cycle. We broke it, didn't we? Yes. Yeah, Omar, we broke it. Malie, please protect them. With that, Omar begins to sing. He looks at Cornelius and the rest of the Hydra. Cornelius knows the song. He'd sing this when he went to sleep, dreaming of his mother when the boys were scared, but his eyes have no fear. They have acceptance. And he looks up in this underground cavern they're in. He sees the first pinpricks begin to emerge from a hole in the cavern. The stars are slowly blinking off one by one. Omar leaves his embrace of Cornelius and moves towards the steps, still singing. As Zukov tries desperately to keep the tear in check, the Hollow King tries to break through, and the whispers trickle into the world. Make us whole.
Make us whole.
Tears stream down their faces, linked to a part of Cornelius' past he can never let go of. Omar sees part of his soul walk away from him, advances halfway up, takes a breath. He stops, looks back. Vampiric curse runs through Omar's veins and tarry blackness his chest and arms. He will look after them. You know I will. I'll break the cycle. With that, Omar ascends the stairs with purpose. He knows what will happen. Each step seems to take a lifetime, and Cornelius watches as they make their way. Omar and Zukov sing. Zukov playing his lute as the sun begins to rise. The portal closes. To their credit, Zukov and Omar do not scream in pain as vampires cannot survive in the sun. As they're blown away into nothing but dust and ash, and we can only but watch. Hours pass. Slowly, we regain control of our limbs. Move your big toe. Torgadon and Nero seem to be unconscious but stable. Cornelius, he doesn't hear anything. The music is gone, the tear in reality is sealed, the cycle broken. Just like that. They are brothers, even if he struggled to say in that lifetime of knowing them are gone. I grab Nero, Rakanar takes Torgadon, and Tak tries to guide Cornelius out of his chamber. Cornelius goes with him without resistance, allowing himself to be dragged out, as if staring at the bright light in the image of Omar and Zhukov dissolve into dust, and such a horrific picture is burned into his retinas. Before any of us know it, we're out of the port. We're outside, and we look at the orphanage. It's no longer a copy of the one in Freergate. It's a decrepit ruin, a shamble among the forest. The rain comes down heavily, but there's no movement. We think that this place is something that has perhaps been abandoned. We're not entirely sure. Cornelius has come to terms that Zhukov and Omar sacrifice themselves to close the portal, to save the continent, or even the world. He's coming to grips that this is now the time to not be a man of talk, but a man of action. Cornelius knows he must go back to Drummond. Take over Omar's orphanage. To once and for all break the cycle. He takes one last look at the orphanage to the closed final chapter of his ruinous childhood. It was Omar's last words to him. You'll take care of them, won't you? Hears not the music of nightmares, but the music of dreams. He feels next to him there are two monks, arm in arm. Nero splutters to life as Cornelius spends a mass cure wounds, muttering groggily, "Portals, it's always portals!" Jasper looks around for the portal. He rolls 19 charisma, feels the rain around him, thinking there's a little bit of grey fog off in the distance. He feels a strange contentment as a voice reaches out to him.
Justice. Balance is done.
The words of Father Leonidas hang in his mind.
You and make me. What else will you and make?
You know me and Torgaddon, and you know my parents. What of them? The mist recedes, as Jasper asks aloud.
What are my parents?
He falls to his knees and starts crying. I'll explain this at the end. Tak is unsure of what to do, nor is Reckoner. I sing Omar's song, and as I do, Cornelius hears in his mind, "You'll look after them, won't you?" Torgaddon urges the party on to Griesmold.
My friends,
says Cornelius, I must return to Drummond. I have to take over the orphanage. It's what Omar and Zhukov, rest their souls, would have wanted. It pains me to part ways with you here. We've been through so much here, but this is the path I have to take now. Know that I may no longer be here in physical form, but in spirit I'll always be with you. Be it in a bar or a battlefield, when you hear a song, I'll be there. And you'll always have a friend in Drummond. I want to snap off a salute, but I hug him instead. IRL, I break down in tears. Yep. It took, what, 24 years for me to cry, for a video game to make me cry. That was Valkyria Chronicles. And it took only a year for a tabletop role-playing game to do so. Yeah, I was tempted to call this video John Cries at the end, but I think that takes away from the loss of Cornelius Bonaparte. Rigsby drops a mistake and Cornelius throws it, but Rigsby doesn't chase it. He said he nuzzles Cornelius' leg and sits by him. Tak embraces him for the first time and Cornelius says, not to terrorize that bird too much. And to take care. To ward the party as a faithful defender. I would walk across 1,000 battlefields if I had you on my side. I'll do just that, says Tack. Let's go. Ragnar, you old lug! You're just gonna stand there, you're gonna come over here and give an old man a hug. Ragnar agrees and taps him on the shoulder with Nero in tow. Thank you. You know you've done more for this group than you could ever know. And I know those kids will have a bright future. Ragnar, always be yourself. And I hope you find what you're looking for. Find a place to settle down, too. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Drummond. Stop for a meal, tell some tales. They could use some good role models. They could use heroes. As he says, heroes, Marvin approaches and nuzzles him. Through the rain we see the sun rise toward the direction of the Barrier Mountains. Cornelius turns to his horse. He takes the moment to memorize all their faces, to look back on all our adventures together. With a smile on his face, he'll turn to the Barrier Mountains and he'll usher in a new cycle. A cycle of love, a cycle of acceptance, a safe place for everyone to be themselves. As he begins to walk away from his friends, he knows, for only a short time, but feels like years, he walks through those mountains and he turns back to see Omar and Zukov back at him. Their memories nod, but behind them is the Hydra. He's not alone. He has brothers and sisters, but there are many more that need his help. And so he mounts Marvin and moves in the opposite direction of the Hydra. As the sun rises, we see the silhouette of Cornelius B. Bonaparte. Whatever he was before, today, he's a herald of Melee. Everyone gets a second chance. For he is living proof of it. We watch for some time as Cornelius goes toward the Barrier Mountains. Even if we can't see them, we know he's there. Cornelius and his horse get smaller and smaller, until there are nothing but a pinprick on the horizon. Eventually, there's nothing but the sun and the sky, and the song of nature around us. Session ends. Yes, so that's the ballad of Cornelius B. Bonaparte in its entirety, or is it? Yes, Cornelius player is unfortunately no longer able to play the game. Like D&D isn't really for them, and it's a shame. Like, I would never have known, because they had they seemed to have a fantastic time, and they were an asset to the Hydra, and a welcome addition. One of the best players I've ever had the privilege of playing with, if not to insult the rest of the Hydra, but possibly even the best player. Full of energy and vim and vigor, clearly bringing out that roleplay that they wanted to do in like Warhammer and other war games into a medium that is perhaps a bit more encouraging of it. An inspiration roleplay that I don't think I'll ever see anyone top. So it was honestly it was really good having you. So thank you, Cornelius Bonaparte player. Yes, we were hoping to get his voice in the session afterwards, but I don't think that was going to be possible. I don't think he was available at the time to do it, because he would have perhaps done the voice of Nox Stronghammer! And, but there's more on that later. So I might either do that session recap later today, or I might do it sometime next week and maybe do 2 in 1. We will have to see. But yeah, it was emotional time. Very tough to see this person go, and like I just wept because it was so sad, and my God, but a great time was had by all, I like to think, and so now it's just myself, Takafree, and Ragnar, and who knows, perhaps there'll be another head of the Hydra joining soon. Yeah. Regarding Jasper, though, Jasper the Crypt Fisher. That might actually be a surname, Jasper Crypt Fisher. In the one shot that we did, taking place under a sort of crypt in Griesmold, there was myself, the Slayer of Dragon, Goblins, and Jasper. And Jasper had basically met his parents, or his mother, reborn as vampire spawn. Dear. And yeah, like Slayer of Goblins, like, was trying to interrogate her, and he was putting her through a lot of pain. And he didn't realise after like doing all this that like this was Jasper's mother. Oh my god! Ah! So it was Jasper's mother, and like we felt really bad afterwards that like he was going through all this and such. So, however, Father Leonidas had actually we'd actually dealt with his brother, who was a vampire, and we defeated his brother, Father Leonidas' brother, and Leonidas himself came and said, "Look, you're clearly not worthy of your gift. You deserve to die at the hands of these adventurers." And so Father Leonidas, in a reward for exposing the incompetence of his brother, gives Jasper a rune of wish. The most powerful spell in the game. Wish. And the only way to cure vampirism, as far as I can tell, is through the wish spell. So Jasper uses it to... He basically wishes for his parents to not be vampires. And so he's taken back in time. Where he's going to do things differently. He's going to make sure that those events don't occur. But he has full memory of what happened. But if I understand correctly, he has full memory of what happened, and or that has actually happened, and that maybe things will be different. So now we're starting to see, well, what's going to happen. So we'll find out in the beginning of session 38 what really happens with Jasper's parents. Are they vampire spawn? Are we in the time where that was prevented? Are we going to see that in the making? Who knows, indeed. But it's a great time. Yeah, like the one shots are fantastic for building a little bit of story for the rest of the game, as well as for characters that people want to play. We had this with Red Tiger, and Jasper Crypt Fisher. So yeah. Oh, dude. So yeah, we've lost Cornelius Bonaparte, but I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the adventures with the Hydra. In the next episode, we shall be going to go to Griesmold, but also as well to go to the City of Gold, in some fashion or another, Denmark. So yeah, so thank you ever so much for watching. Take care, ta for now, and yeah, looking forward to seeing the rest of the adventures of the Hydra in A Debt to a Friend. Take care. Ta for now.